The series actually comes, go ahead, David, from a movie that was launched, this Favorite Things, you know, is a movie called The Sound of Music. Anybody? My Favorite Things right there. I love the song, love the movie. Give it up for David. Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, and just the idea in the movie, there was the lady played by Julie Andrews who was actually like an au pair, and she was keeping the children of a general at war, and he was kind of a strict regimental guy, but they were just going through so much. And so she created an opportunity for them to shout out the things that were going well, that were good. And I just know that that's so good for our hearts. And I want to just share this morning a word simplistically titled, Grateful for Gratitude. I'm just thankful, church family, for the way gratitude works. You know, in the middle of the most difficult situations or just your every day sort of day when maybe you could even get caught in the distraction of doldrums, if you'll give God some glory for all the good that he has done and is doing in your life, I'm telling you, it changes the tenor and the trajectory of how life lives for you. I'm just saying that there is some strength, there's some punch, there's some power in choosing to be grateful. It's an amazing thing. And I'm not just talking about positivity here. I'm not talking about saying something's good that's bad. I'm just saying in the middle of even the most heinous situations, we will still find God good and near if we'll look for him. And there's so much always, even again, in those spaces to be thankful for. And especially as Christ followers, and nobody repped this better in the Word than the Apostle Paul. I want to read to you just to begin with this morning from Philippians chapter 4 and verse 10. This group of scriptures, some of my very favorite in the Word. And reading from the Message, he says, I'm glad in God. He's speaking to the Philippians, and he said, I'm glad in God. Far happier than you would ever guess. So there you go. Right off the bat there, he begins with some gratitude. He's just letting them know, look, I'm grateful. I'm thankful. Happier, he said, happy, first of all, that you've shown, again, your strong concern for me. Not that you ever quit praying or thinking about me. You just had no real chance to show it. But then he says this, and this is so punchy, because I want you to understand, Paul wrote the book of Philippians most likely from a Roman prison, which would have been in the basement, and everything rolled downhill. If you're following me here. So there would have been governmental offices above and a prison below. It's kind of the dungeon, right, okay? It was a situation. So let's just say that it wasn't really great where he was or what he was going through in his captivity. And yet, here's what he said. Actually, I don't have a sense of needing anything personally. I've learned by now, and I love that. It took me a minute. He said, I've learned by now to be quite content with whatever my circumstances. I'm just as happy with little as much, with much as with little. And this, I found the recipe. I bet there was some good recipes over Thanksgiving. You want to get those ingredients just right? Let me tell you something to add to every recipe in regards to your emotional situation or the days that, again, you are facing gratitude. Put some gratitude in there and it'll sweeten it up a little bit, everybody. I found the recipe for being happy, whether full or hungry, hands full or hands empty. Whatever I have, whatever I am, I can make it through anything in the one who makes me who I am. One of my very favorite things is gratitude. I love it. I love to choose it. And I love to experience it with others. You know what I'm saying? Like, I love it when someone's grateful. When you're around someone, and they're grateful, I love to work with, and I do. I love to work with. I love to walk with. I love to travel with. People who are grateful, like that are not consistently complaining, but find a way to be glad. Now, again, I want you to hear me. I'm not talking about some false confession of positivity. Positivity will often leave us feeling cynical, right? Because we're trying to make something good that isn't. But what I am saying is that in every circumstance, God is good. Somebody help me just a little bit. And that he is faithful to us. And that we sang it in the very first song. He picked me up, he turned me around, he put my feet on solid ground. That doesn't mean that there aren't issues, man. But the wise man, come on, somebody built his house on the rock, and I bet he thanked God for it. He didn't spend his time complaining about the storm. He thanked God there was a rock to build on. Do you hear what I'm saying this morning? I am grateful for gratitude. I am glad that we get to choose to be glad because it is a game changer. Otherwise, we would have to wallow in the perspective of woe is me instead of good is he. You hear what I'm saying? No, I didn't put that in a takeaway, but I kind of wish I had just now. I love it. I love it when my kids are grateful. I love when the people you're trying to help, our grandkids, man, when they're grateful. We just want to see that. It's not, I need you to say thank you. No, I want to make sure that I coach you and teach you to be grateful because I know you're going to need it. It's going to be good for you. It's going to make you strong, make you able to persevere and to push through when it isn't all the way that you wish that it would be. Even science says so. I read this one article about gratitude. And it just said, if you could put this in a pill, what it does for your emotions, if you could put it in a pill, everybody would want it, right? I mean, there is something really good. Again, I know I'm being redundant, but I'm not just talking about positivity, where we call something good that's bad. It's not some broken name it, claim it, prosperity perspective. I don't believe that that's God. There are people who have walked through hell, though, and still stay grateful. And the Lord will sustain us when that's the attitude that, we saw it ourselves in Jesus. So Karen and I and McKinley went to Arkansas for Thanksgiving, which was a little bit interesting. So we flew out early in the week, and our Isaac and Audra and Jacob and Christy and Judah and Grace and CJ and the crew, I think the Lewises, they were all at our house for Thanksgiving. I don't know who else was there, but if you was at my house for Thanksgiving, just shout me out right quick. But there was a lot of people at my house. We weren't there. We left. And that's not because we didn't love them, but we really wanted to get to see her parents at her aging and struggling a bit with their health, and it was a good time with them. And while we were there, we got to visit her grandma, Karen's grandma. So McKinley calls Karen's mom Grandmeemaw, and then she's got great-grandma. Great-grandma, 103, everybody. Yeah. Well, that's very kind of you. She will not hear you unless you lean over and get real close. I love you, Grandma. And she, for the first time, I mean, she is actually in an extended care facility because she has to be. I mean, Phyllis, they still take her home, but it's just at the point where they can't give her the care that she needs. But it was an amazing visit with her. And she would feel my hand to see if it was me. She couldn't get me, but she was like, McKinley said, "Oh, it's you, sweet girl." It was adorable. But the only reason I bring it up was that she was perpetually and has been thankful, grateful. She just kept whispering, "Thank you, Jesus, for bringing my family to see me." And, Karen was asking her what her care was like. And she said, "Well, mostly good." And she said, "Well, who doesn't take great care of you?" "I don't remember their names. I only remember the ones who do." Man, I mean, I don't know if I want to be that grateful. I don't know that, because I don't know that I want to live to be 103. You know what I'm saying? I feel like I'm going to get to heaven if I live that long and be like, what was I waiting for? Right? But Grandma's amazing, so grateful. And what a heritage. And she's been that way for as long as I've known her. And she's gone through some stuff, people. I mean, she's been around a minute. She's seen some things. My mom was like that. My mom was just quintessentially joyful, like consistently joyful. It was like what carried her. And she had quite a lot of battle. And she lived in a house. They had their own home, but they moved in with Grandma and Grandpa and took care of them until they went to be with Jesus. Then my sister, who's Downs, went to be with Jesus. My dad went to be with Jesus. And my mom never lost her gratefulness or thankfulness. She was just not a complainer. And it's powerful, powerful stuff to choose. Our first takeaway is this: gratitude is a choice that improves your perspective in seasons of prosperity or problem. Either prosperity or problem. Gratitude. I mean, let's be honest, and we say this here a lot, but prosperity and problem are each their own kind of trouble. Because when we miss on God, it doesn't matter how much we have. We still lost and broken. I mean, we need to be thankful. We need to choose gratitude in every circumstance. Paul wrote that to the Thessalonian church, 1 Thessalonians 5, 16 through 18. He said, rejoice always, pray without ceasing, and then in everything, there it is, yep, there it is, in everything, give thanks. For this is the will of God in Christ Jesus for you. I'm going to stop real quick and say it's great to see Brandon in the house. My goodness, buddy. I didn't see you back there. Brandon's one of my buddies from Special Touch Camp. I see you. I see you. Good to have you, man. Jesus, though, is always extending his love. The reality is rejoice, pray without ceasing, right? I mean, when you think about that command to give thanks in every situation, here's what you got to know and notice. In every situation, Jesus is there. Every one of them. Like he's always there. He's always there loving. He's always there leading, helping us navigate. He is always near to us. One of my favorite things about Jesus is that he is miraculously inconspicuous. Yeah, did you see that's a play on words, everybody? Because he is miraculous and inconspicuous. And often, if we're not, what I mean by that is that, sure, I mean, we should shout out the fact that we are breathing this morning. Like that the earth hasn't spun off its axis. There's a lot going on here, everybody, that we can be thankful for and be grateful about. Now I'd like to raise the bar a little bit because, you know, I often roll up to the queue or the checkout stand and I will make conversation. You guys know I coach you up on this. Every time we have lunch or dinner and we're eating out, we ask the server their name, and some of you might have been my server, and I'm going to ask you what your name is, and then I'm going to say, we're going to bless our food in a minute. Is there anything we can pray for you about? Right? And God opens doors and does work in the people that we interact with and us. When I'm at that checkout stand for my South African friends at the till, I will say, you know, how are you? Almost always get the retort, I'm good. How are you? I like to ask back, and I will say, I'm blessed. And then that kind of befuddles people a little bit. There's Isaac and Audrey. And they'll be like, how are you blessed? Some of them will just hold that question. They all have it. Everybody want to ask it, but not everybody does. And it gives me an opportunity just to shout out how good God is. But often the answer I get from them when I ask, how are you? They'll say, well, I'm still above dirt. Or I'm breathing. And I always say in retort to that, I'm coaching you a little bit. I'll say, and that's great, but I'd like to raise the bar a little. I'll say that out loud. Not only am I above ground, but I am blessed, man. God has been good to me. He's put people in my life who can care about me and challenge me in my walk with him. And I don't say it quite like that. That sounds a little preachy, but I get pretty close. You know, I'll say things like, you know, I love this. I love this about Jesus, you know. Like, he doesn't forget you in the fire. He doesn't. You know, like think about Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, the artists formerly known as Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, okay? Think about those guys. What if when they stood up for Jesus and they got thrown in a fiery furnace, he would have been like, where did they go? What's happening? He knew where they were. He inserted himself in the situation and gave Nebuchadnezzar the eye. And he always does. Maybe somebody going through the fire today. Look around. Look around. I'm telling you who's there with you. Do you hear me right now? Found and free, everybody. That's what God does. He makes us found and free. The truth is, just from a temporal perspective, we have more conveniences now than any other time in history. And yet it concerns me sometimes because I think we've become a culture of complainers. Yeah, I feel that. I feel like sometimes we just become a culture of complainers and we don't appreciate all that God has done, you understand? And that is so bad for our hearts. Oh my goodness, complaining is so bad. It's okay to have an honest assessment of a difficult situation and to share that with your friends and pray about it. That's not complaining. And honestly, we don't usually complain about the stuff we ought to complain about. We complain about the other stuff. Like we'll complain about traffic. There's funny stuff we complain about. Instead of being thankful, we got the car. I'll tell you what they don't complain about in Western Zambia, traffic. Unless somebody cuts them off on the path. And they're probably good to have a walking buddy. We complain about cell service. Those have been around since the 90s. You want to roll back in time? Your wife couldn't tell you what to pick up at the store? I don't know. I ain't got no cell service. I mean, I get it. I feel that way too. Their internet. We upset that fast food isn't very fast. I don't know what you complain about, but I know the things we complain about are generally lame. I'm just saying. I'm right there with you. Here's what Paul wrote to the Philippians. This time I got it right. Philippians 2:14, he said, do everything without complaining and arguing. And it makes a big difference too. So a few years ago, we did a series here at 828 Church called, a whole series called Do the Math. And we worked out the math on a lot. I like a little bit of math. Don't tell anybody. Because I've long joked math is hard and stuff like that. But it's really just kind of a joke. It is a little bit hard. But math is fascinating. And the math on gratitude is incredible. Like this math works, everybody. So let's say, for instance, that X is gratefulness or gratitude and Y is complaining, okay? And Z is your joy. Let's just do a simple equation like that. So X is a positive, right? Because gratitude is a positive. But complaining is always a negative number. It don't even make it to zero. It's always a negative number. So let's say, for instance, if we had X was a positive 10. You had 10 things you were grateful for. And Y, I'm going to put that on the screen, I think. Y, right, is a negative 10. Then you got 10 plus a negative 10 equals 0. You even being grateful, but because your complaining matches your gratitude, you still don't have any joy. Now, if you just reduce your complaining by 5, at least you got a little bit of joy. Or throw some more gratitude on there. Go to 15 and 10. At least you got some. But I would like to suggest that you reduce the complaining as far as 0 if you could. Because then if you had 10 things you were grateful for, and then look how this math works. This is what I love about the way this math works. Because if you subtract, so when you add a negative, add 10 things you complain about, you get to 0. But if you subtract a negative, it becomes a positive. That'll preach. I think but y'all work with me. If you subtract a negative, in other words, those 10 things are now subtracted. They're not there anymore. Okay, that actually becomes a positive. It's incredible. Minus a minus 10 is like saying plus 10. So if I had 10 things, a positive number, X, that I am grateful for, and I subtract 10 things I was complaining about, my joy goes to 20. Y'all like, he don't know how to do math. I dare you to first of all check my math. Ask Dylan after church, he'll tell you I'm telling the truth. Okay? Also, I guarantee you that's how it works in regards to your joy. I understand though, that often it's a little bit deeper than that. I get it. Sometimes it isn't quite, it's not those maybe less significant things. I know when back in 2006, I was hit by a truck. It wasn't his fault. I got in front of him and I got trucked, pardon the pun. And I mean, I was trying to do something good. Most of you have heard this story, but there was a little boy that ran in front of the truck and I was trying to get him out from in front of the truck. And I did succeed in that effort, but I did not succeed in getting me out from in front of the truck. And I still struggle. I struggled with pain last night. You know, I mean, it's just a part of the journey. I'm blessed. Come on, moving pretty good. Have to make some choices. I'm thankful. But I remember even just about 2 years after that accident, I was probably talking to Isaac or Jake, but I was just like, man, I was so close to getting out from in front of that truck, you know? Like, and I got to where the more I thought about it, like if I had just had a couple more seconds, I caught the front of an F-150 right there, shattered my femur, and now I have a titanium rod, if you just wanted to know, but you probably didn't. I mean, I was just like, man, if I could just have gotten right there. I mean, I made it, almost. I busted his driver's side headlight. I'm proud of that. Take that. I just didn't quite make it. And I was talking to God about it one day, and I think I've landed in a little bit of a complaining space. I was like, Lord, if you just give me one more second. And you know what I heard from God? Every second you have from that moment forward is a gift. Every single one. They're all an extension. That sounds good. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, I will not bring that up again. I'm not asking for Pollyanna faith. It's an old school Disney movie. This little girl went through horrendous things, but she had this game she'd been taught to play before even she had lost her ability to walk and some things. She called it the glad game. She'd been orphaned and some bad things had happened in her life. And the glad game was she would always find something to be glad about, often through tears. But it was powerful. And I'm not saying, though, that you have to have Pollyanna faith. We need some of this faith. But the glad game wouldn't hurt us. Not a little bit. I'll tell you this, and I'll move. A complaining life is a discontented life. Another takeaway for us. It is. Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. Psalm 136:1, for his steadfast love endures forever. Be grateful. I mean, little things, sure, but raise the bar a bit and be grateful for all that God has done. I think one other thing I'll mention real quick, and then I'll find a way to land this with one last story. But the truth is, often, also, we are less than grateful because we feel like we're entitled. I don't know where that came from, but it wasn't from God. Again, I appreciate the fact that we have kids that are always grateful. It makes me happy as their dad to try to get to help them. They don't even need my help so much anymore, but they're always grateful, always thankful, you know. And before the Lord, that we would maintain a posture of gratitude before the God who's been so good and kind to us. But often we just act like this is what we shouldn't face any trouble. And if we do, it's his fault. So when it's good, God don't get any glory for it. How crazy is that? He didn't break this world, everybody. We did. I'll move. Romans 2:4. Do you presume on the riches of his kindness and forbearance and patience, not knowing that God's kindness is meant to lead you to repentance? The truth is this: deep gratitude is rarely our default, even in the family of faith. And because it isn't, here's the last story I'm going to tell. It's cool. I'm about to read to you from Luke 17. But when we miss on gratitude, we miss on seeing Jesus. That's what's sad, is we miss on getting to be close to Jesus. So Luke 17:11, it happened that as Jesus made his way toward Jerusalem, he crossed over the border between Samaria and Galilee. As he entered a village, 10 men, all lepers, met him. They kept their distance, but raised their voices, calling out, Jesus, Master, have mercy on us. So here's the scene. He's walking through this area. I don't believe it was on accident. I think he ended up there on purpose. He walked through this village on purpose, I think, knowing he was going to encounter these 10 lepers, whatever the case. In the flesh, maybe he didn't have that prophetic awareness, but whatever the case, when he got there, the word says in verse 14, he looked at them and said, they called, please have mercy on us. Man, they, I'm sure, had heard this is after he had healed a leper who literally approached him on the road. Remember, there was a story where a leper literally approached Jesus on the road, which was amazing in and of itself. I always say, I love that Jesus' reputation preceded him to the degree that this leper knew that he could approach him, because they weren't allowed to approach him. They were supposed to do what these men did, which was keep their distance. But they still called out, believing that he could somehow heal them. And then this is what he said, go show yourselves to the priest. And look, as they went, they were cleansed. Now, if you were just expositing this passage, you'd make a big deal out of that because there's a lot in it. But the fact that they even chose obedience in that moment, they hadn't yet been cleansed, but as they were going, they were cleansed. There's a little faith on that, but that's not what I'm preaching about, but it's important. And as they went, they were cleansed. And he said, go show yourself to the priest, not because their healing was going to come from the priest. It was the priest, and in this culture, according to the law, that had declared them unclean and had separated them from their families. There's so much in this. These men weren't just sick. They were separated. They were ostracized. They couldn't even be around people except other lepers. Some of us, we feel ostracized. We feel like we're far away. Whatever it is that we've done, whatever we've chosen, whatever's broken inside of us, and we all have something, We feel like we don't deserve to be near. But Jesus just said, go see the priest, and they're going to tell them they're cleansed. But then this, he looked at them and said, go see the priest. And then, verse 15, one of them, when he realized that he was healed. So it worked. Somebody say it worked. They were healed. One of them, when he realized he was healed, turned around and came back, shouting his gratitude, glorifying God. He kneeled at Jesus' feet, so grateful he couldn't thank him enough. He was a Samaritan. And the word points that out because Samaritans he was ostracized and ostracized in regards to the Jewish culture and to a Jewish rabbi like Jesus. And then this, Jesus said, were not 10 healed? Where are the 9? Speaking of math, that's some pretty sad math. That's just bad math, man. 10, 1 out of 10. Is that where it lands? Is that where it lands even amongst those who have experienced God and his goodness? Is that where it lands? I mean, I don't know. I hope not. I think not here. You guys are awesome. There's a reason, though, that I run up on this stage saying, come on, man. Let's give Jesus a shout out. So I think he's worth it and worthy. And I want us to be a church that remembers that and realizes that and leans into that. I love everybody. I don't want you to mishear me. We're not better than anybody. We're not a better church than anybody. There are a lot of churches in this city trying to love Jesus and follow God. But I ain't trying to follow God like this. Hell lost another one. I love it when people come out of the baptism and they're like, them arms go straight up. People may never raised their arms before in public. And it's like, yes, something just happened and I know it. He's worthy. This guy got it. Then Jesus said, can none be found to come back and give glory to God except this outsider? He wasn't dissing on him. He's just pointing out, of all the people who should have come back, this might have been the guy who wouldn't have felt like he could, but he did. Yeah, that was God preaching to you too. You think you can't come, you just come on ahead. Think you're not worthy, come on ahead. Think you're an outsider, you're wrong. Right? Jesus came to make you an insider. Okay. And then he said to him, check this out. He said, get up on your way. Your faith has healed. Look at the conjunction. Look at the conjunction. The rest of them got healed. Did you see this, though? Did you see this, though? Your faith has healed and saved you. Yeah. Gratitude put him close to Jesus. Gratitude did that. Gratitude put him close to Jesus. It'll put you close to Jesus, too. Okay, you're here in the house. Maybe you saved already. Praise the Lord for it. You're going to heaven, but don't you want to be close to Jesus? And come into his courts with thanksgiving, to his courts with praise. See where you get when you give a little gratitude. And you won't even have known that you were getting there till you're there. And then you're like, oh my goodness, blessed people, hear this. Blessed people are not always grateful, but grateful people are always blessed. I'll say it again. Blessed people are not always grateful, but grateful people, because see, it's a double whammy. Because you blessed, but if you also choose to be grateful and being grateful, you're blessed. Because the blessing is this. You like, oh man, look at the things God has done. Look at the things God has given us. And that's good. And praise is powerful. It's shouting out who God is. But there's another element to this with gratitude. It's not just shouting out who God is. It's shouting out who God has been to you, what God has done in you, what God has done for you. And then you stop just seeing the gift. You start seeing God. Come on, somebody that's learned the beauty of praise and gratitude, shout out with me right quick. Help other people know it's so. Because you stopped just seeing that you were blessed. You started seeing the blesser. good that that back row was that far back. I'd have spit on somebody right then. Are y'all with me on this? I'd like to stop preaching and get the worship team back up, but I want to make sure we don't miss this. You'll see him, and you'll see you. You'll see your reflection in his eyes, who you really are and who you're really made to be. And the powerful thing in this story, blessing plus gratefulness. So he was blessed, he was healed, and then he was grateful. And what that became for him was generosity. And that's what it'll become for us too. And for some that may relate to finances, but this dude didn't have any dough. What he had, he gave, and what he had to give was worship. We all have that. Everybody has that. But if you are both blessed and grateful, you will be generous, and he was generous with God. Here's today's big takeaway. The power of gratitude is found in its ability to connect the graced with both the gift and the giver. That's the power of gratitude. Not only connects you with the gift, gratitude connects you with the giver. Come on, worship team, here and at South, join us. But complacency, conversely, complacency, comparison, and complaining will all cause you to miss deep connection with Jesus. So don't do that. Somebody say, don't do that. Hebrews 12:28, therefore let us be grateful for receiving a kingdom that cannot be shaken, and let us offer to God acceptable worship with reverence and awe. And even Jesus did this. Jesus did this when he was on planet Earth. Jesus gave thanks in every situation. It's a common thing to see that. John chapter 6, he had just lost his best bud, his first cousin, John the Baptist. He just heard that John had been killed and already by now buried. And he got in a boat to get away from the crowd, maybe to mourn a bit, but they followed him, and he taught them, and he loved them, and the word says he healed them. He healed their sick. And then the disciples said, you got to feed them or send them home. And they wanted to send them home, because how could he feed them? They were being sarcastic. Apparently he missed on sarcasm. He said, tell them to sit down. See what you got, 5 loaves and 2 fish. That's not enough. Maybe you're in a situation right now where you look at it, it's not enough. Look what he did though. You see what he did? Jesus then took the loaves, and when he had given thanks, even before they were multiplied, he thanked God for them. That's amazing. Or think about John 11. We taught this a few weeks ago with Lazarus was dead in the tomb. People were upset, sort of blaming Jesus. And he said, Father, thanks for hearing me. Before he came out the tomb. I get it afterward. Lazarus, come forth. Yeah, thank you. Before he came forth. Thanks for hearing me. You always do. Somebody just whisper that to God this morning. I dare you. Thanks for hearing me. Trust him with the outcome. Just trust him. Don't decide for him. Let him decide for you. And then on the night that he was betrayed, arrested, led off to be crucified, he broke bread with his disciples. The cup that he was about to drink, represented by what was in his hand. And Luke 22:17 tells us, and he took the cup, and when he had given thanks, even for the cup. Gratitude. Choosing to be grateful. I need to finish, so I will, and I'll finish with a poem. And the poem's actually the same as the message title, which has become kind of common if you're new to us. For about 2 years, I write a poem every Sunday. If you don't like poetry, you might want to change churches. I'm grateful for gratitude. Being thankful is a force. Giving God the glory is a strong, impactful choice. Gratitude, like the sunrise, with the perspective that it brings, transforms the winter's night. into the glimmering light of spring. It gives breath to empty lungs when air's in short supply. When life demands give up, the grateful heart need not comply. Gratitude produces hope. It's difficult to explain, with the will to persevere through the deepest kind of pain. So choose to see his goodness. Stop looking down, start looking up. Whether half empty or half full, choose to be glad you have a cup. Be grateful for God's nearness and his love that knows no end. Joy's strength is found in Jesus. There's no heart he cannot mend. Don't forget that God is with you. Trust in him. He is your source. And in every situation, the grateful heart, he'll keep on course.